We went through the same stories. You could have asked me the same questions 4 years ago. I had to litigate this and talk about it. Totally fake news. No, actually, I paid tax. And you'll see that as soon as my tax returns. It's under audit. They've been under audit for a long time.
The Times also saying that Mr. Trump paid just $750 in federal income taxes the year he ran for president, and in his first year in the White House, Mr. Trump has not released his tax returns. Police called Sunday to the Fort Lauderdale, Florida home of former Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale after his wife reported he was armed and she feared he was about to kill himself. Authorities saying officers convinced Parscale to surrender peacefully. They then brought him to a hospital for evaluation.
The campaign's communications director, Tim Murtaugh, with a statement, Brad Parscale is a member of our family, and we all love him. We are ready to support him and his family in any way possible.
Reporter Rafael Perez with Fox TV affiliate WSVN. Democrats still angry over Judge Amy Coney Barrett's Supreme Court nomination by President Trump.
What's at issue is both this rushed and partisan confirmation in which President Trump has told us he's choosing someone who will overturn Roe versus Wade, he's choosing someone who will overturn the ACA, and he's choosing someone who President Trump himself says he will need to put their thumb on the scale so that he can win the next election.
Delaware Democratic Senator Chris Coons on CBS's Face the Nation. America is listening to Fox News.
Hafidade, this is Carl from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you wear a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific Rosewood branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Fox News Channel.
The death of a third-party candidate causing a delay now in Minnesota's 2nd congressional district election.
38-year-old Adam Weeks was a farmer running under the Legal Marijuana Now party. State law says if a major party nominee dies 79 days ahead of the November 3rd election, a special election must be held on the second Tuesday of February. In this case, it'll be February 9th, 2021. Minnesota began early voting and started mailing out absentee ballots on September 18th. Freshman Democratic Congresswoman Angie Craig is facing a challenge from Republican Tyler Kistner. Sue Guzman, Fox News.
U.S. gas prices remaining fairly steady.
The U.S. average price of regular grade gasoline at retail dropped just 1 penny in the past 2 weeks and is now $2.25. It is a discount of 47 cents under what it was a year ago. I do believe that we are going to see further price cutting on the street, so prices will be dropping, I think.
Gasoline industry analyst Trilby Lundberg publishes the Lundberg survey. Academics in the UK saying few people there observe quarantine rules after being exposed to COVID-19.
Britain's government says too many people have been breaching coronavirus restrictions, and now there's research that may back that up. A study from King's College London says 8 in 10 people admit breaking the rules on self-quarantining when they have coronavirus symptoms or have been in contact with someone who's tested positive. Britain has recently introduced tougher penalties, including fines of up to $12,000 for breaking quarantine. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
More than 100 people were arrested on criminal and traffic offenses during an unauthorized car rally in Ocean City, Maryland, late Saturday night. Many confrontations between participants and police captured on video. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
$5 foot long, pile high with veggies.
They're back. Any foot long is a $5 foot long when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby. Open the Point app. Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on Google Play or go to thepoint.gu. The 2020 Census of Guam will conclude its primary data collection phase on September 30th, 2020. Call 645-2020 today to complete your interview. Your responses will provide information local leaders need to distribute federal funding for our island's essential services. Call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Respond today, Guam, because together we can make a difference.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Today is another day in the perfect world of Tall Tales, where we began with a respectful recitation of a portion of the United States Constitution, that being the Second Amendment, and promise you 2 more hours of the same. More United States Constitution, freedom, liberty, conservatism, a little bit of common sense. That's us. That's kind of our theme song here on Tall Tales, America the Beautiful. Glad to have you aboard, all you tailgaters out there in our international radio listening audience. Let's start out with Zemi Ikotny. Here we go. Once again, the same old stuff, boilerplate. This is Gabe Roth, the executive director of Fix the Court, a nonpartisan organization. Well, if his is a nonpartisan organization, I wonder what the partisan ones look like. So they ran this column by Gabe Roth, and he says lawmakers are well within their rights to again change the role of our top jurists, consistent with their understanding of the U.S. Constitution. So this guy, Gabe Roth, wants to change the way the Supreme Court operates. And, of course, this is all brought about by one thing, the demise of the legendary Ruth Bader Ginsburg, also known as the incredible RBG.
RPG.
Maybe it should be RPG.
She had some explosions.
Yeah. So I'm going to deal with this editorial here, and then I'll bring it back to where we really are with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and where the Democrats really are with all of their talk about reform. Americans waking up this week to yet another fight over Supreme Court nominations are asking themselves, Is there a better way? The answer, of course, is yes. A plan to fix the appointment process already has the support of the vast majority of Americans favoring restrictions on the length of Supreme Court service versus 23 against. Oh, that's just got to be baloney. Because if I took a microphone and walked out here on Marine Corps Drive and asked 99% of the people, what is the length of a term of a Supreme Court justice? You know what answer I'd get, Jose? I can't really say it on the radio, although I have developed a sound for a parenthesis sign. It sounds like this. I have yet to develop a sound effect for a shrugging of the shoulders, but that's what I'd get. What's more, this would not require amending the Constitution. Now, this column actually in the USA Today and, of course, the Daily News should have started with the immortal words, once upon a time, because it is, in fact, a fairy tale. Article 3 states that judges and justices hold their offices during good behavior, which has historically been understood to mean that not until death do they and their robes depart. But there is no particular reason the office referred to could not be interpreted as the office of federal judge. Nothing, that is, except the wording of Article 3, which Mr. Roth saw fit to edit to the point that it lost its meaning. I will read the Article 3, the first sentence of Article 3, as it's actually written. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior, etc. Now, does that sound like a single appointment to the judiciary, or to two different kinds of appointments, one to the Supreme Court and a different kind of an appointment to an inferior court? Now, we know what inferior courts are established by statute, and inferior courts are district courts and courts of appeal. So he goes on with this fiction. In other words, after a justice serves a reasonable amount of time on the high court, she could continue to serve for as long as she wanted elsewhere in the judiciary. Maybe traffic court is an example. Since 1937, when a tweak in federal law smoothed the path for retired justices to do exactly this, 11 have chosen to continue their public service on lower courts, including Sandra Day O'Connor, who left the High Court in 2006, and David Souter, who retired in 2009. Remember, the judicial life tenure is not handed down by decree from on high. It exists in the United States because a series of 18th century British monarchs, and this in the other side of the Atlantic, were axing jurists whose decision they objected to. That's it. So our federal judges have life tenure so that they can't be hounded out of office for rabid Democrats who don't like their decisions. There's another section in here in Article 3 that says you can't cut the salary of a sitting judge or justice. So the idea behind life tenure is the office will be protected from the winds of popular fancy, demonstrations, harsh critics, overzealous politicians, etc. So the key word here behind life tenure is impartiality. You've heard me on this program say more than once, that if we could ever get over this idea of this silly commission for decolonization, which is actually a commission for tomorrow independence, we could start thinking about improving our status. For one, asking that our district judge have life tenure, like all of the other states and all of the states and Puerto Rico have. Nearly every country whose constitution was written in the 20th century, not to mention 49 of the 50 states, requires its top jurists to step down after a certain number of years or upon reaching a certain age. Our Supreme Court is an outlier. During the founding generation, justices had few responsibilities from the bench and limited jurisdiction, but until 1911, they were required to hear cases in far-flung locales across our burgeoning country, an exhausting and treacherous proposition before the advent of modern modes of transportation. Some members couldn't leave the court fast enough. So before, I think it was 1869, we had we kept adding circuit courts of appeal as the country grew, and each of the Supreme Court justice was assigned to a circuit, and part of the year he would go out and ride circuit. That is, he'd leave Washington and go to that circuit and participate in the appellate arguments. That lasted until 1911. And as a matter of fact, nowadays, every judge is still assigned to a circuit. So if there is a request for a stay from one of the circuit courts of appeal, it goes to that particular justice. And I think it was sometime around 1865, we added the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the Rocky Mountain area, basically. So for a short period of time, we had 10 Supreme Court justices. Then in 1869, it was cut back to 9. Serving on the Supreme Court today is akin to being a rock star, maybe even a monarch, thanks to the legendary, incredible RPG, or Sandra Day O'Connor, another good example. You know, when Sandy was on the Supreme Court, she was the swing vote, and there were all sorts of magazine articles and newspaper columnists who fawned all over Sandra, pointing out she's the most powerful woman in America, because how she decides, whether she decides for the left or the right, depends on how the Supreme Court goes. And the story was that lawyers appearing before the Supreme Court spent most of their preparation time trying to figure out what would appeal to Sandra Day O'Connor. Well, Sandra obviously liked her time in the spotlight because critics said that they could find no ideological thread that tied her decisions together. That for Sandra, the ratio decidendi was a mathematical process. Make sure there are 4 on this side, 4 on that side, so I could keep my magical powers, Sandra said. So anyhow, Supreme Court justices as monarchs. Supreme Court justices are wined and dined and flown around the world. An entire segment of the population hangs on their every word, and entire segments of the population are impacted by their every keystroke. It's a different job, and we're a different country now. The left has got to convince us we're so much different now than we were when the Constitution was scribbled on a few sheets of parchment, that we really have to adapt it to modern times. With Republicans in the Senate having the votes to confirm President Donald Trump's nominee, Democrats might not be able to stop a conservative jurist from becoming the next notorious ACB, Amy Coney Barrett. but they can join with their conservative colleagues who have long embraced the concept of term limits and ensure that never again will a superannuated, a fancy name for old people. I have to confess to being superannuated myself, a status that I never sought, but certainly superior to the alternative.
It's only because you're the only one that could pronounce it.
Probably. Something like that, yeah. Okay, so to start, Congress would pass a law whereby a new justice would be added to the court every other year. That way, each presidential term gets 2 nominees. 2 vacancies would become more predictable. If the goal is a 9-justice court, that means future justices, 9 times 2, would have terms of 18 years. If there were a long term, 18 or 20 years, something like that, and it was fixed, I would say that was fine, to quote Justice Stephen Breyer. To avoid constitutional concerns, they signed up for a limitless job. Breyer and his 7 current colleagues would be exempt. After their terms, a prospective justice would have the option to serve on different federal court, and this is critical in light of recent events. They'd be able to return to the high court in the case of a vacancy. Full strength, less gamesmanship, no partisan advantage. Throughout U.S. history, Congress has used its constitutional power to change the roles and responsibilities of our courts. Lawmakers are well within their rights to, again, change the role of our top jurists consistent with their understanding of the Constitution. Well, their understanding of the Constitution is not as good as mine, therefore it's flawed. And I just pointed out to you what Article 3 really says, not the truncated version that Mr. Roth here would present to you. So that attempt to change the Supreme Court would, in my humble estimation, be clearly unconstitutional. However,
denied.
Correct. However, if this cockamamie scheme went on long enough, guess who would be ruling on the constitution of the newly packed court? The Supreme Court. Kind of a physician, heal thyself type of deal. And of course, the real object in doing this would not be for the long term. It would be right now, because we need to get 2 more justices. We need to get Biden elected, and we need to get 2 left-wing justices on the court. Otherwise, we in a heap of trouble. That's what's really motivating this. And all of these wonderful proposals now all of a sudden surface after Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, and it appears that there's no way to stop another judge from being appointed. Amy Coney Barrett, who is just such a flawed person. Already, the liberals, the lefties, are tripping over themselves to point out how flawed she is. I read one column, Amy Coney Barrett, she's got 5 kids. Yeah, what an indictment.
And one's adopted.
Well, 2 are adopted.
Oh,
yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah, well, she's got 5 of her own kids. I mean, that's really bad. And then she has adopted 2. And she and her husband adopted 2 children from Haiti. So in the parlance of today, they are BIPOCs.
BIPOCs.
Black indigenous people of color.
Oof.
I guess they're not indigenous because they're from Haiti, so they're not indigenous, but they are people of color. But of course, the left severely criticizes them for that because this is obviously a colonialist maneuver. So they just can't find enough reasons. And then, of course, people like Mazie Hirono and Di-Fi, there's a couple of beauties. Mazie Hirono and Di-Fi criticize her for horror of horrors. She is a Catholic. Can you imagine that? Where's the stake?
I get to use hashtag #MeToo.
Yeah, she's a Catholic, so where's the stake? Anybody got some matches?
Right.
Yeah. So while we're on it, you know, I want to spend a little time talking about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have so much to say about her. Soft-hearted me, I thought I'd wait until she was in the ground before I really opened up. And, you know, it's not nice to speak ill of the dead, but there aren't a whole lot of choices when it comes to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is from Town Hall. In a statement announcing Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death on September 18, 2020, Justice John Roberts said, quote, "Our nation has lost a jurist of historic stature. We at the Supreme Court have lost a cherished colleague. Today we mourn, but with confidence that future generations will remember Ruth Bader Ginsburg as we knew her, a tireless and resolute champion of justice." Ginsburg was a champion of something, but it wasn't justice for the unborn. Sure, the left superhero was tireless and relentless liberal judge, but she won't go down in history as the saint the Democrats suggest. Far from it. Chief Justice Roberts failed to mention that because of her pro-abortion stance, millions of unborn babies won't have the opportunity to remember Ginsburg, who fought up until the end for the legal right for mothers to kill their unborn babies. What an awful legacy to leave behind, let alone carry into the hereafter. While I'm sorry for her family's loss, let's be honest, the crocodile tears flowing down leftists' faces have little to do with Ginsburg. Now we're going to have a short vocabulary lesson here. Crocodile tears, Jose. You know what crocodile tears means?
I know it's when they're profuse yet disingenuous.
Yeah?
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. So crocodile tears stems from the finding that when a crocodile eats carrion, eats dead meat, tears come out of its eyes. So as it's chowing down on its kill, tears come out of its eyes.
I didn't want to do it, but you're so tasty.
So that's what crocodile, the actual meaning of crocodile tears. So in this kind of American idiom, what it means is someone who feigns great sorrow after just doing somebody in, right? You just kill the guy and say, then you go to his funeral and really get out the crying towel for him. So that's one meaning for crocodile tears. So if that's the case, I suppose it would be the Republicans who would be crying the crocodile tears because they're really not sad that Ruthie's gone. However, it also has the meaning of, as Jose said, profuse tears unleashed by insincere people. And that certainly is the left. Do they really care about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or are they really sad that they lost their, as we would say in Guam, their Godzu? You know, their fighter that has one of the stalwarts in protecting the most sacred principle of leftism. The thing that they'll go to the wall for every time, the right to abort children, unborn children. And that was Ruthie. And they're afraid now that once she's gone, that someone who hasn't swallowed that kind of Kool-Aid, that hard left Kool-Aid, might not support what's so important to them, the right of women to kill their babies in the womb. So I'll read that sentence again. While I'm sorry for her family's loss, let's be honest, the crocodile tears flowing down leftist faces have little to do with Ginsburg. Democrats mourn because they are about to lose their, quote, insurance policy, with the Supreme Court set to return to its commonsensical roots of interpreting the law rather than legislating it. Oh, the agony. For generations now, the activist justices have deliberately muddied the law and found countless ways to shove their non-values down our throats. As I type, Democrats wail like snot-nosed crybabies because they fear Ginsburg replacement means overturning Roe versus Wade. Lies and deceit conceived Roe versus Wade. That's a nice choice of word. Conceived Roe versus Wade. Where were the abortionists when we really needed them? But that matters little to the death-cult Democrats who worship at the altar of selfism, believing abortion is an inalienable right they'll do anything in their power to preserve. Shortly after Ginsburg died, Biden voters called for political terrorism, burning it all down if President Trump and the Republican-controlled Senate perform their constitutional duties to fill the vacant seat. Ginsburg sang the praises of Roe versus Wade during a magazine called ELLE, which Frenchie would tell you means she in French. Right, Frenchie? Displaying her zealous partisanship and passionate commitment to leftist politics. When asked about retiring, Ginsburg said, quote, "So anybody who thinks that I stepped down, Obama could appoint someone like me, they're misguided. As long as I can do the job full steam." So her narcissism even prevented her from promoting her own legacy, because had she resigned during the time of Obama, Obama could have appointed another arch lefty to replace her. Maybe she could have even helped in the selection process. Let's take a short break and we'll come back to the notorious RBG.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Pick up dinner for you and the family at Chili's. We got you covered with a variety of delicious family platter options, like our fajita trio, Cajun chicken pasta, or our crispy chicken crispers. Or order off our new menu for you and a friend and indulge in our tasty burgers, tacos, and ribs. Get your Chili's favorites in a way that works for you. Call 648-7377 or WhatsApp 929-7376 for curbside pickup orders. Or get delivery with Good to Go. Chili's, you can still savor the moments at home.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, so her own desire to continue on as a rock star prevented her from resigning during Obama's term, when Obama could have appointed another lefty like the notorious RBG. So, lefties, you kind of brought it on yourself. You got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, Kenny Rogers said.
They missed an opportunity to burn the cities down early.
That's right. So now you're going to get Amy Coney Barrett, who appears to have her head screwed on exactly right and knows exactly what she's doing. And she seems to be, horror of horrors, a good person. Okay, so she said, anybody who thinks that if I step down, Obama could appoint someone like me, they're misguided. As long as I can do the job full steam. And full steam ahead she went until the end, spewing archetypical Democrat doublespeak, claiming to fight for the poor and minorities while simultaneously supporting policies that disenfranchise them. Ginsburg's stance on abortion seemed to edge towards eugenics. During a New York Times Magazine interview in 2009, while opining about the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits federally funded abortions, Ginsburg said, frankly, I had thought that at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want to have too many of.
This is a quote of
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Not Margaret Sanger.
Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in populations that we don't want to have too many of. Therefore, the Supreme Court was right in deciding that we should have abortion on demand to hold the population down, especially of some of the less desirable people. Quote, that we don't have too many of. While it's unclear Ginsburg endorsed Roe's eugenic motivation, it certainly was an odd thing for a Supreme Court justice to say during an interview. Democrats' abortion movement has deep ties to eugenics with Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger. Ron Weddington, the co-counsel in the Roe case, made the relationship quite clear in a letter he wrote to President Bill Clinton, imploring him to rush to market RU 486, the abortion pill. Quote, you can start immediately to eliminate the barely educated, unhealthy, and poor segment of our country, Weddington wrote. It's what we all know is true, but we only whisper it. Think of all the poverty, crime, and misery, then add 30 million unwanted babies to the scenario. We lost a lot of ground during the Reagan-Bush religious orgy. And darn Reagan and Bush, they didn't understand. We don't have a lot of time left, Weddington suggested, who he had in mind when he wrote. For every Weddington suggested who he had in mind when he wrote, quote, for every Jesse Jackson who has fought his way out of poverty of a large family, there are millions mired in poverty, drugs, and crime. NPR reports Ginsburg's dying request was, quote, my most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced until a new president is installed. If that's true, it means Ginsburg left this world agonizing over politics rather than things which really matter, like family and friends, or where she'd spend eternity. If true, tears should be shed for a life utterly wasted. Currently, the left accuses conservatives of dancing on Ginsburg's grave. Not at all. Sure, we're dancing, but it's not on her grave. We're celebrating that Ginsburg's replacement will value human life. What a strange concept for a person in public office, to value human life. What is the world coming to? And that the Supreme Court will return to what the founders intended. After what Democrats did to Brett Kavanaugh, Republicans owe Democrats nothing and must straightaway fill Ginsburg's empty seat for the sake of our country and its future, both born and unborn. Yeah. Thank you. So, once again, the title of the article is...
That's amazing that that deathbed wish. Like we're watching part of the term, a tall tale in fruition and creation.
Yeah, a
right
real
there.
tall tale.
Real tall tale.
Yeah, and then beyond that anybody even cares.
Right.
These are not hereditary offices. And, you know, if you abdicate, you don't get to pick your successor. But that's the left. So the title of this article by Susan Stamper Brown, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was no Maria Theresa. And, you know, once again, we come down to the proposition that in our world, there's good and evil. There are good people and there are bad people. If you sign up with me that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a bad person, the fact that she was really, really skillful and really, really good at being bad doesn't cause me to want to cheer for her. If you're bad, you're bad. And the more skillful you are, the more harm you could do. So much for Ruth Bader Ginsburg is no Maria Theresa. All right, let's go to the card. Let's see what I got on the card for today. I've got Thomas L. Kreis versus Tall Tales. So Thomas has now achieved the middle name of L because W is already taken.
Not E-L-L-E?
W is already taken. You know who's got W, don't you, Jose?
Yes. Senator James Moylan.
James Woke Moylan, since he introduced his identity politics hate crime bill. Thomas L. Kreis, the L stands for lefty. Yeah. You know, like the famous baseball, well, not so famous anymore, but the famous baseball player, Lefty Grove, right? Yeah, that can be a name, right? So I guess we could call Thomas L. Kreis Lefty for short. Maybe I will. Then I've got Judge Iriarty versus Art St. Augustine. Where in the world is our Fred?
He's tallying up the votes.
Yeah, well, he's got some tallying to do there, I think. And then I have, this is not a somebody versus somebody else. I have some really, really good legal news, something that's been plaguing me all my life, and I finally had some really good news. Then I've got Barr versus London Breed, and Tall Tales versus the Supreme Court, and Crozier versus Mertz, and Justice Ginsburg versus the unborn, etc. So let me start out here with Thomas L. Kreis. Kreis, I think it's Kreis, versus Tall Tales. And this is a letter to the editor that ran in yesterday's Daily News. And here's the title: Thomas Kreis, Human Rights Transcend Party Lines. And he starts out the column with the most important word in his vocabulary. It's only one letter long. Can you guess what it is, Jose?
I.
Aye, yeah. So I occasionally, as a composition coach, will urge some people who are attempting to reduce their thoughts to writing that sometimes I suggest you need to take your stuff to an ophthalmological surgeon because you got too many eyes in there. But he starts right out with the bottom line: I recently had an anonymous complaint. Whoa. You know it's serious if it's an anonymous complaint, right? About my participation in one of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. The message said, quote, the president of UOG shouldn't be involved in partisan politics. That was a quote. He goes on to say, I can't respond to an anonymous complaint, so I'd like to respond in print. As a 22-year veteran of the U.S. Air Force, it doesn't get any better, does it, as he goes along?
Not at all.
U.S. Air Force, and he's talking about it.
He brought his own shovel.
Yeah. And as a seasoned university president, I understand my responsibility in my role not to participate in partisan political activity. Rather, I seek and present truth and demonstrate my commitment to human rights and American values. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier. If you ever wondered what the term virtue signaling means, what virtue signaling means is someone who will engage in speech or activity that is designed to cause other people to think, wow, that guy is he's really a good person. It's a form of showing off. Virtue signaling and its twin brother, righteousness preening, which is a couple of degrees higher up the totem pole than virtue signaling. So if you ever wanted an example of virtue signaling and or righteousness preening, here it is. Rather, I seek and present truth and demonstrate my commitment to human rights and American values like, quote, equal justice under law, liberty and justice for all, and that all people are created equal, not all men, but all people are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Man, this guy can really turn a phrase, can't he?
He's checking all the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, did he compose all this stuff just off the top of his head? Amazing. Next paragraph. I have taken solemn oaths to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which of course includes the basic human rights. Now, I didn't know the Constitution enshrined any human rights. You know, we've talked about that we've talked about the Constitution many, many times, and the fact that what the Constitution provides is negative rights. The Constitution doesn't tell you that you have a right to anything. It just tells you that the government can't do certain things to you. As an example, starting right out with the very first word in the Bill of Rights, obviously Lefty didn't write this because it's not I. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, etc. So there are no human rights encompassed in the you got to go to some lefty stuff in order to get that. Some of the boilerplate that the United Nations puts out, or maybe something from Thomas Friedman or some character like that. Okay, time for a short break here, and then I'll come back to Lefty Cries versus Tall Tales.
Time is running out. The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Call 645-2020 to respond before September 30. Our call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is your chance to influence the decisions made for the next 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
Hofady. This is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and Mezcla Dos are open for takeout and delivery services. More details, call the Hagåtña location at 479-2652 or Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon at 646-6295. Get your Mezcla fix at the comfort of your home.
Okay, so we got about 10 more minutes here till that big halftime show, so I'm still struggling here with this letter to the editor by Lefty Kreis, the president of the university. I know how to shorten a letter. If I took the word I, me, mine, and myself out of it, it would only be about half as long as it is. But I don't want to short circuit the process here. He says, I've taken solemn oaths to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which of course includes the basic human rights enshrined in that document. So my demonstration in favor of those basic human rights is not merely my right, but indeed my solemn duty.
I'm sorry. I'm just... Same thing happened to me when I first read it yesterday. Laughter.
We have a sound effect that will go with this sentence, that new sound effect. Let me read the sentence again, and then you can use the new sound effect, okay? I have taken solemn oaths to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which of course includes the basic human rights and So my demonstration in favor of those basic human rights is not merely my right, but indeed my solemn duty.
What just happened?
Is that an echo from the Ray Gibson show or what? All right, let me see if I got somebody here who can help me. Yeah, I got our Carl on the line. Our Carl, give me a hand here, will you?
What do you mean, clap or? I think you hear enough clapping already, Bob. Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I mean, wow, that opinion piece is just dripping with self-congratulation. Wow. Oh my goodness, he slathered it on thick. One thing I find ironic about that whole thing is that he didn't take 2 minutes to investigate what Black Lives Matter, what the core ideology of the organization is. If he just went to the webpage, which they've now taken down because they've got some kind of Hollywood publicist guiding them, and they said, you need to get rid of all this stuff.
You need to stop. You need to stop telling the truth about your organization. The truth is hurting you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the anti-America, anti-nuclear family, anti-capitalism, all that stuff has to go, and they took it down. And I just saw a video recently which made a very compelling case that the core leadership of this organization has a connection with the Chinese Communist Party. They're actually getting financing and support from the Chinese Communist Party. Now, Chinese Communist Party killed over 76 million Chinese, poor Chinese people in the 20th century. So, all that talk about human rights stuff, I mean, it's laughable. It is absolutely laughable.
Well, Carl, to me it's laughable that he uses the phrase human rights as something contained in the Constitution. That suggests that he hasn't studied the Constitution. He knows what they're saying. and he knows that human rights are really good and the Constitution is really good. But, for a university president to come out and say something like that, it's kind of shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And given the amount of damage that's being done across America by this organization and Antifa, both of which are neo-Marxist organizations, it's just incredibly ironic. A lot of these businesses that were burned down and people were killed and badly injured were black people, were people of color. As usual, the neo-Marxists are emotionally manipulating groups of people that they want to herd in a particular direction to advance their agenda. And that's exactly what's happening across America.
Well, I was going to mention this a little later on, Carl, but you mentioned neo-Marxists, cultural Marxists, etc. You remember a gentleman named Antonio Gramsci and the Long March, that when the neo-Marxists decided that there would not be a violent revolutionary overthrow of the government by the workers, they came on a new way of proceeding, and that is the Long March through American institutions, primarily schools and colleges. Here you are, lefty cries, Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, Gramsci's contribution to the Marxist ideology was really pretty brilliant. I never would have thought it would have worked as well as it did.
So well that apparently we have one as president of the university.
Yeah, or one that's been influenced by the teachings, the ideologies in university. This is the way I picture it happening, is that the universities have become ideological training camps for to indoctrinate young people with these Marxist ideas. And so then once they become indoctrinated, they graduate and they fan out all across America into journalism, into mainstream media of all kinds, the military, religion,
the university
politics,
community.
The university, especially the university community, especially in the humanities and the social sciences, the soft sciences. It has just really been corrupted by this ideology, and that's why James Moylan lost my support, because he started to lean in this direction, and it's just doing incredible damage to the country, and it's starting here on Guam as well. And I totally oppose this idea. It's just poisonous to people that it gets a hold of. It's terrible. So to see someone, I'm losing faith in the military. I thought once people got in the military, they would have some basic understanding of some of these things and the preciousness of our freedoms. But more and more, I'm becoming disillusioned.
I'll tell you how bad it's gotten, Carl. The latest story about the military is that in the last National Defense Authorization Act, there's language that requires the 2 Marine Corps boot camps to train male and females in the same platoons. Yeah. So what that means is this. Having done it myself, I can't imagine any woman going through Marine Corps boot camp, at least like it was 60-some years ago. Maybe it's not as hard, but I got a feeling it's every bit as hard. Now, there might be 1 in 500 Amazon-type females that could make it, but your average female couldn't even begin. So in order to make this work, what's going to happen? You're going to have to dumb down the whole thing, make the whole thing easier, or no woman will make it through. I got a break for the big halftime show, Carl, but I'm going to come back to Thomas Cries. Lefty Cries.
All right, Bob, thanks for letting me chime in.
Okay.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
It's not true. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. That's the Trump campaign's response to a New York Times report saying President Trump paid no income taxes in 10 to 15 years before the 2016 election. The president calling the Times story, quote, fake news. Trump campaign National Press Secretary Hogan Gidley telling Fox News.
The attorney for the Trump organization said this was incorrect. The president said it was fake. And this president actually put forth more than 100 pages of tax documents when he ran for president the first time. This has already been litigated. The American people don't care.
The report also saying the president paid only $750 of tax the year he was elected to office. Police called Sunday to the Fort Lauderdale, Florida home of former Trump campaign manager Brad Parscale after his wife feared he was about to kill himself.
Police responded to the home in reference to an armed male attempting to commit suicide. When officers arrived on scene, Parscale's wife let them know her husband was armed and threatening to harm himself. Police say he was the only person inside the home, and they were able to quickly get him to exit safely. He was taken to Broward Medical Center. Parscale has been a member of the Trump campaign since 2016. He eventually became the campaign's manager until he was replaced just a few months ago in July.
Reporter Rafael Perez with Fox TV affiliate WSVN. Former Vice President Joe Biden getting ready for his first one-on-one debate with President Trump on Tuesday night.
Biden has not hosted an event in a swing state since Wednesday as he braces for his first ever face-to-face debate with Donald Trump. Despite some shaky appearances on stage this cycle, the Biden Brain Trust remains confident. In mock debates, the role of Donald Trump is being played by former Obama White House General Counsel Bob Bauer, according to the Associated Press. Biden remains reluctant to make the fight over the open Supreme Court seat just about the court, hoping instead to steer discussion to health care.
Fox's Peter Ducey. America's listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Mezcla Dos Upper Tumon are now open for takeout and delivery services. For more information, call now at 479-2652 or 3 or Mezcla Dos at 646-6295. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comfort of your own home. They take your local favorite dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla. Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff. Whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs, they're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
Democrats on Capitol Hill still opposing the nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to fill the Supreme Court seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying that seating Barrett on the High Court could doom the Affordable Care Act.
What I am concerned about is anyone that President Trump would have appointed was there to undo the Affordable Care Act. That is why he was in such a hurry, so he could have someone in place for the oral arguments which begin November 10th. And it doesn't matter what the process is here. What matters is what it means personally to the American people. If you have a pre-existing medical condition, that benefit will be gone.
Speaker Pelosi on CNN's State of the Union. The Senate hearings on Judge Barrett's nomination start October 12th. President Trump in a Sunday morning tweet calling for Democratic opponent Joe Biden to take a drug test before Tuesday night's first presidential debate. Trump adding that he would, quote, agree to take one also, unquote. Frank Fahrenkopf chairs the Commission on Presidential Debates.
We're not in the business of doing drug testing, and there's no way that we can do that. And let's face facts. No one can take anyone's drug test unless they agree to it. And it's my understanding that the former vice president has said he's not going to agree. So I don't know where this issue is going to go, but clearly it's not going to be a requirement put forth by the debate commission that one or both be drug tested.
President Trump and Joe Biden will meet for 2 additional debates, October 15th and the 22nd. Britain's Prince Charles warning that up to 1 million young people in Britain may need urgent help, he says, to protect their futures from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Prince of Wales saying the crisis is reminiscent in his mind of the upheavals of the 1970s when youth unemployment was one of the pressing issues facing British society. Those comments coming as the spread of COVID-19 accelerates across the UK. I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Have you responded to the 2020 Census of Guam? If not, time is running out. Call 645-2020 before September 30 to make sure you and your family are counted in the 2020 census. Our call center hours are Monday to Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. We only get this chance every 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
Okay, Google. Hi, Bixby.
Open the Point app.
Opening.
Live stream, on demand, swap stations. Check out the visual radio. Get the free app available on Google Play or go to thepoint.gu. The 2020 Census of Guam will conclude its primary data collection phase on September 30th, 2020. Call 645-2020 today to complete your interview. Your responses will provide information local leaders need to distribute federal funding for our island's essential services. Call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Respond today, Guam, because together we can make a difference. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Well, here we are. We just finished up that big halftime show that you all come to know and love so much. Every day it gets better and better and better. So I'm going to go from there back to Lefty Kreis. And I probably should have asked you to key up a song that would have fit in very well with Lefty's approach to composition, Jose. I don't know if we could put it on, but if we ever talk about Lefty again, the song is the Mexican Hat Dance. Do you remember how it starts?
Yeah. Dun, dun, yeah.
I.
That one.
Yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah. All right, so...
Thought you were going to make me hum a couple of bars.
No, that's our Attorney General.
Oh, boy.
All right. I have taken solemn oaths to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which, of course, includes the basic human rights enshrined in that document. So my demonstration in favor of those basic human rights is not merely my right, but indeed my solemn duty. I was steeped in these principles thanks to my family's military service to the country dating back to the American Revolution. Wow. Including almost every war since. My father, Edward F. Kreis, was the founding commandant of the Defense Race Relations Institute. Boy, he's really pulling rank on us, isn't he? Now called the Defense Equal Opportunity Management Institute. And he devoted years of his career to helping the armed forces become one of the fairest and most racially integrated organizations in American society. When I was president of Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, I joined my students in their demonstrations of a commitment to American principles and human rights. Where's our applause here? American principles and human rights. I co-sponsored with the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Tacoma a, quote, hate won't win, close quote, campaign after the massacre at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina. I joined in a die-in demonstration of students protesting brutality targeting the African American community. I spoke to and marched with students and faculty at a, quote, Take Back the Night demonstration against sexual violence targeting women. And I listened. Now, this is, I got to have the music here, Jose. I spoke to and marched with students and faculty at a Take Back the Night demonstration against sexual violence targeting women. And I listened with tears streaming down my face as I heard what some students, staff, faculty, and fellow administrators had suffered. I forgot my Kleenex again, Jose. I gotta keep a box of Kleenex. If we're going to talk any more about the president of the university, I gotta have a box of Kleenex handy. Yeah. I listened with tears streaming down my face as I heard what some of my students, staff, faculty, and fellow administrators had suffered.
Even your phone's chiming in.
Yeah. I got to note that the song that I thought the song was Cielito Lindo.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, I thought it was. Well, anyhow, you get the point.
I know that song. We could
Yeah.
probably find something.
Yeah. I.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So anyhow, it's so good that Lefty shared this moment with us, that he did this with tears streaming down his face.
Now, I read this also, and I know you're getting to a part which, to me, I looked at it and said, all that he said above, human rights and Constitution and protecting everything, and then I'll just let you read the rest of what he says.
Okay, well, he squeezed that in between the I's and the my's and the me's and the my's.
The I's have it.
Yeah. I have been proud of our UOG community for serious conversations we've had since the murder of George Floyd about racial injustice and how we treat each other. We held a 9-week series of, quote, courageous conversations that started with a focus on the plight of the African American community on Guam and the rest of the country, but then expanded into often emotional stories about how we, in this Micronesian region, often treat each other unequally. Humanities Guam also hosted a series of conversations on these topics as a community response to the Black Lives Matter movement. The conversations themselves helped us let's see, the conversations themselves helped us all come to grips with inequality and even cruelty in our communities. Oh, wow.
Can I just back up just a little bit to that sentence where he brings a verdict to, who was it, George Floyd? The murder of George Floyd?
Oh, yeah.
So everything matters except for due process.
Yeah. I have been proud of, very good, I missed that, Jose. I have been proud of our UOG community for the serious conversations we've had since the murder of George Floyd.
Apparently he's been murdered.
Yeah. So the Red Queen said, the punishment first, then the verdict. Yeah. And, of course, if you listen to Tall Tales, you know that this whole thing has really been hyped up. George Floyd died of a heart attack, not suffocation. And the cops that dealt with him after they were called because he'd passed a counterfeit bill exactly followed the training guidance of the Minneapolis police. But if you practice identity politics, the facts mean nothing. It's the identities. White policeman, black criminal, it's obvious. White policeman, black criminal, burn the town down. It's just a three-step process. Okay, I've got R. James on the line here. Good afternoon, R. James.
Afternoon, Bob. How you doing?
Real good.
I'm just wondering what your opinion would be if there was a move or maybe a movement to come back to something similar to, if not exactly, the McCarthy era investigations and hearings where people and where individuals and entities, whether that be business or whatever, were called out as being, quote unquote, communist and contributing to attempting to try to overthrow our government from within. What would your opinion be if somebody came back and said, hey, we've got all of this money that's being pumped in. It could be coming from China. It could be coming from multi-billionaire trillionaires that are being backed by who knows who. We need to investigate this. What would your opinion of that be?
Well, as outspoken as I am, I would come out in favor of it because I actually happen to know something about that era. One, I was alive. Two, Joe McCarthy was our junior senator during the time I was in junior high. Three, I actually shook hands with Joe McCarthy once upon a time. Yeah, when I was on a field trip to Washington, D.C., we had breakfast at some diner in the Capitol, and Joe McCarthy joined us. But here's the real truth about Joe McCarthy. If you spend some time with the Venona intercepts and some of the other stuff that was written about those times, Joe McCarthy was right, that there were an abundance of communists in the United States government. So it wasn't that Joe was wrong, it's that he had a poor sense of public relations and he opened himself up to attacks that he didn't need to suffer. People forget that it wasn't Joe McCarthy that outed the Hollywood 10. That was the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUAC. And one of the books I read pointed out that the left was so intent on debunking both that committee and McCarthy that, and one of the New York Times crossword puzzles, the clue was McCarthy's committee, 4 spaces, HUAC. And of course, McCarthy was a senator. But I mean, that just goes to, that little snippet there kind of shows you the bias. So you had the Hollywood 10, and they were being investigated because the theory was that they were using their position in movie making to glorify the Soviet Union, communism, and to debunk some of the good things about the United States. So when they were asked to identify other members, they were all admitted communists. And when they were asked to identify other communists, they said that they refused on the basis that their answers would tend to incriminate them. Well, there was nothing against the law at that time. And being a communist was not against the law, so they were just they were just obfuscating and hiding, etc. So there really was no room for them, for any sympathy for them at all. But the left has turned them into heroes. And the hagiography goes on. There was a movie that ran just a little while ago, Dalton Trumbo, with, what's his name, Cranston in the title role. And Dalton Trumbo was one of the primary offenders in the Hollywood 10. So we're kind of dealing with the same thing right now where, you know, the media, the left, the universities, et cetera, are apparently overrun with these Marxists who are in a soft manner trying to do the United States in. So I would be all for it, R. James.
Yeah, Bob, I have to agree because I honestly, really and truly feel that there is a very sinister and very pointed agenda out there that is being very, very, and probably, you know, look, they probably took cues from the McCarthy era. That was a little bit before my time, not too much before my time, a little bit before my time, but it was still very much a hot topic of daily discussion as I was a child growing up. Okay, so I mean, I was hearing it every day, all day long, and I think that there really has been a very concerted, a very slickly financed and orchestrated effort to try to do behind the scenes, inadvertently, and if you go as far as to say covertly, to do through our schools, our colleges, our teachers, our professors, and now has moved in the last 20 or so years directly into the politics and the campaigning of our politicians, pretty much everything from the dog catcher all the way up to the president. They figured out that they weren't just going to be able to overthrow the United States, so they figured out that they were going to have to do it, you know, quote unquote, one chip at a time, a chip here, a chip there, and just keep whittling away at it over 50 plus years. And guess what? It's worked. Look where we're at. I mean, when people like Bloomberg and Soros, and I'm going to even throw Bill Gates into the pile now because of some things that he's done recently, when they spend the kind of money that they're spending to go out and literally purchase prosecutors, DAs, governors to influence general elections of the people, the way that they're doing it. Look, this is not a lobbyist group that's in Washington that's trying to get, you know, a reduction in something for some type of a, you know, federal regulation or control or get something changed. They are literally going out and they are, in my mind, they are committing voter tampering and vote fraud and conspiracy to commit all of these acts. By how many people would get $100 million dumped into their campaign to be a prosecutor for a state? Okay, there's something going on here, and it's slick, it's well planned, it's orchestrated, and it's very, very highly funded. So we need to get on this, and we need to get something taken care of here, because they figured out a way to do it, and guess what? It's working. That was my thoughts on it. I'd be all for a commission to investigate all that, because Antifa and BLM and all of these groups are getting huge amounts of money, and it's not coming from the people that are protesting on the street. They're being paid to protest. Who's behind the money? Where's the money coming from? Yep.
Good points, R. James.
Yep. I just wanted to see what your thought on that was, and I back that 100% too, Bob.
Okay,
all right, have a good one.
Thank you. So going back here again to the murder of George Floyd, right? Yeah. And one of our posters here says, and I kind of missed this myself, he said, his name is Vit. Maybe one of Lefty's professors could explain the difference between the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States, because he's wrapped them all together as part of those human rights that he found in the Constitution. What a guy. So, yeah, with George Floyd, no due process, no equal protection for the cops that were doing their jobs at the time that George Floyd had a heart attack. All right, see where
some are more deserving than others.
Really?
That's what it is.
Where did I leave off on this auto-hagiography, right? A new word, auto-hagiography.
Sounds illegal.
Yeah. The conversations themselves helped us come to grips with inequality and even cruelty in our own communities, but they're also leading to changes in curriculum and programming. Oh, that's scary. Leading to changes in curriculum and programming.
You don't say.
Yeah. Yeah, we need more courses that end in the word studies. You know, we need more professors in these courses aimed at helping us realize the hopes of our country and culture, from all people being created equal to anaphemalic and chenchuli.
He just learned those words on Friday.
Very good, Lefty. So for anyone who might have paid attention, oh, here we go. So for anyone who might have paid attention to my track record over the years, oh, I did. I can't tell you how much time I paid, how much time I spent paying attention to his track record. I got a feeling that I know who spent an awful lot of time paying attention to his track record. Thomas L. Kreis. It should be no surprise that I turned up for the Black Lives Matter demonstration in Hagåtña. Is it time for the seventh inning stretch or too early?
We can do it.
All right, let's do it.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Happy day. This is Claire Manglonia from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
So here we are, Wrigley Field in Chicago, seventh inning stretch, and we're going to come from Wrigley Field right straight back to the historic studio of The Point here on Upper Tumum. And I'm back with President Thomas L. Kreis of the University of Guam, who has shown us with his letter to the editor that he is really in tune with the lefties in this country. And I left off here. So for anyone who might have paid attention to my track record over the years, one of my great regrets, I didn't spend more time paying attention to lefties' track record. It should be no surprise that I turned up for Black Lives Matter demonstration in Hagatnya. Black Lives Matter is not a slogan of a party. It's not a slogan of a party. It's a plea and a demand for equal justice under law. I wonder what rock Lefty lives under. I wonder, maybe I could give him one of my old books that I haven't looked at for a long time. Dick and Jane. Yeah. It's a plea and demand for equal justice under law. Now, I titled this as Thomas L. Cries versus Tall Tales, and now you will see why it's him against Tall Tales. Here's what he says. Anyone who despises that slogan, that Black Lives Matter, is declaring that they think Black Lives Matter do not matter. Yeah, so that's me. I think Black Lives Matter doesn't matter. And I got my pronouns right. He's got his right too. He says, anyone, as you were, who despises that slogan is declaring that they. So he's got his pronouns right. Yeah. Well, I think that the organization Black Lives Matter is a subversive organization that's in the process of trying to foment a revolution here in the United States. It is not a civil rights organization. It cares absolutely nothing about people who we now refer to as black African Americans. It is a neo-Marx organization, and I have nothing but contempt for Black Lives Matter. So I guess that fits me into being in opposition to you, Mr. Lefty Christ. And if not, tell me what I need to do to get over there, because that's where I want to be. Because everything that you've said here in your self-important screed about Black Lives Matter is wrong. You're probably right about yourself, since you seem to have such a high degree of self-knowledge. Then he goes on to say, we who live here in Guam, where the memory and experience of discrimination and oppression is as alive as anywhere in the USA. Pandering to the separatists, of course.
I'd like to know where he got his white privilege inoculation from.
Yeah.
Apparently it doesn't affect him in this paragraph.
We who live here in Guam, where the memory and experience of discrimination and oppression is as alive as anywhere in the USA, should be especially in tune with the idea that Black Lives Matter. Wow. Not until Black lives finally really matter to our society will we have fulfilled the promise of our country's founding that all are created equal. I read a lot of letters to the editor, but this one wins the prize. If we have a merry-go-round here, you know, like some of the guys like our Carl and another Joe like to ride that merry-go-round over and over again. Well, this guy only rode the merry-go-round once, and he got the brass ring. Yeah. Very good. There's your ovation, Lefty. That's how you measure up here on Tall Tales. I have another article that's kind of on point here from another person that fits right into this that fits right into this same paradigm. Kamala Harris blasted for praising BLM as essential and brilliant amid violence. Kamala Harris praised the, quote, brilliance and, quote, impact of Black Lives Matter protests, deeming them necessary, in comments that led to some social media to slam her as insane. Nothing that we have achieved that has been about progress, in particular about civil rights, has come without a fight. So I always am going to interpret these protests as an essential component of evolution of our country, as an essential component or mark of a real democracy, the California senator said during an interview held as part of the NAACP's National Convention Friday, which was held virtually, etc. Protests were necessary, the Democrat candidate for vice president said, as the people's voices must be heard. And it is often the people who must speak to get their government to do what it's supposed to do, but may not do naturally unless the people speak loudly. Harris praised the brilliance and impact of Black Lives Matter without criticizing the ongoing violence at rallies held in the organization's name in cities across the country, nor the shooting of 2 police officers in Louisville. I actually believe that Black Lives Matter has been the most significant agent for change within the criminal justice system, the former California Attorney General said. Critics slammed her support for the group, whose co-founder described herself as a trained Marxist in 2015. Many suggested she was supporting riots, violence, and intimidation. GOP operative Arthur Schwartz posted a clip of the interview video with the comment, unmoved by the violence in our streets and the brutal attacks on our police officers, Kamala Harris said the protests are essential for our evolution as a country. And I think she means it. And I don't think Cries means it. I really don't. I think that he has found another method to give rise to his narcissism. Gave him all kinds of opportunities to use the I word. I don't think he's like an operative, but the word useful idiots comes up. Yeah.
He was that close to plagiarism.
Really?
It's like copied somebody else's work.
Yeah, really. But, he's going to reform the curriculum. And that is frightening to think that he could be out there long enough to do some real damage to that institution. And he'll probably be able to get away with it because other than tall tales, there are a few people that are willing to call out lefties like Mr. Cries. Yeah, okay, so I got some help here on the line. I got R. Keith on the line.
You're someone who might help.
Good afternoon, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. When you were reading this lunatic's screed, did you happen to hear the sound of one-armed bandits, slot machines?
I didn't. Did I miss something there, Keith?
Well, no, those were my eyes spinning in my head.
Like the reels on a slot machine, huh? Okay.
Yeah, people. One of the criticisms of Trump is that it is one of hubris and arrogance, and I gotta tell you, compared to this guy, Trump is like Andy Griffith. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more self-serving letter or published piece in recent memory. That's really, he's quite an individual. I think you're right. He's found himself a cause, And whether he believes it or not, who knows? But he certainly loves to shout from the rooftops and posture and what's the current expression? Virtue signal?
That's right.
Much like I believe Jesse Jackson does. It's more about them than any real progress. And frankly, at the end of the day, their approach to quote unquote progress is actually counterproductive and takes us back a few steps. But I appreciate your pointing him out and just sort of letting the people know the type of individuals that have infested, and I choose that word intentionally because it brings up the image of cockroaches and rats, infested academia. You know, the old slander of, whether about some people in academia about those who can't teach. I think it's usually used a little too overbroad, but in this case, yeah, I'd have to say this is probably pretty spot on. I'd be curious to see if this man has ever held a job outside of government or academia. My bet is no. Anyway, I just had to share my thoughts. It was simultaneously aggravating, but at the same time amusing that someone could be absolutely so full of themselves.
Well, he's full of something. I guess himself. I guess it's charitable, right?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Wow. One wonders if he actually believes that his own BLM stinks. I don't know. Well, you have a nice day.
Okay, Keith. It's always good to talk to you. Thanks a lot for giving me a hand on this one here. You know, a few weeks ago, I ran one of Aline Yamashita's columns. She's a regular columnist for the Daily News. Aline Yamashita, PhD, is a teacher, single mother, and former senator. And she was a little bit unkind to Lefty herself, and she said that during the shutdown, the university should have come forward and been the leader as far as the schools were concerned, but they did absolutely nothing. And she was responding actually to a column that Lefty had written concerning Disney's policy is a reminder of unequal treatment for those in the territories. So he wrote a letter to the editor, and it wasn't up to stuff. He only used the word I about 25 times. But Aline criticized him because the university was absent during this time that the public schools are closed, and the university should have provided leadership. And she wound up her column by saying, instead of worrying about Disney and unequal treatment, the president should have been worrying about the future of this island and region. Well, I guess I'd have to take issue with Arlene here. Maybe Lefty wasn't that worried about Disney and unequal treatment. He was probably wondering where the next Black Lives Matter demonstration would be, and then working on his ability to write columns about himself, which seems to be one of. I wonder if you could get to be a university president if you're really good at writing columns about yourself.
Somebody tell him he already has the job.
Yeah. Okay, next item on the card here is Judge Art Iriarte versus Art San Augustine. Public health not doing its job. This is a story from the Daily News. Judge orders transfer of dozens out of government quarantine. Multiple passengers have filed legal action against the government's quarantine policy, which Superior Court Judge Elise Ariarte found was not voluntary. After hearing from people held in the government quarantine facility, Ariarte determined some passengers did not quarantine voluntarily, and the department held one woman against her will. Quote, we've heard testimony after testimony of people that claim you are voluntarily quarantined, saying that they haven't, Ariarte said on Thursday. The outcome of that has been that 30 or so cases that are being filed in this court, and we're trying to make sure their rights are being preserved. She ordered the public defender's office to represent passengers to ensure they're being advised of their rights. Going on, the current system that you have in place. Now, the article doesn't tell who the you is, but I suspect it's a representative from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, if not the director, Art San Augustine himself. But the way things work, notwithstanding the way some of the reporters think, if people in a department are not doing the right thing, it's not the fault of the department, which can't be held at fault for anything. It's the fault of the director, because the director of the department is responsible for everything that shouldn't happen that does, and everything that doesn't happen that should. And the director of a department, unless you're the governor,
nobody's perfect.
Yeah, none of us are perfect. The director of the Department of Public Health and Social Services won't be heard to say, well, the people at the airport didn't hand out the right stuff. It's you, Mr. Director. Now, apparently that didn't apply to the governor, because in one of her press conferences, she used that very defense. I'm not the one who, I'm not. But that's the way governments work, that the person in charge takes the responsibility. That's why, literally, that's why they earn the big bucks. So the judge said, the current system that you have in place, I'm sorry, but public health is not doing its job in notifying these persons. They're not qualified, or they're not conveying it correctly, the judge said. After a Customs and Quarantine officer had flown home on September 1, he and his family were placed in a hotel contracted to be the government's quarantine facility. The officer took issue to the court on September 9, and several other passengers followed suit. In another case, Ariarte found a woman was held against her will. Janella Cruz, what a name, Janella Cruz, also took public health to court over the quarantine imposed on her and her two sons. At the time, public health was using guidance memo 2020-11 REV7, which said unaccompanied minors are to complete a 14-day quarantine at the GovGuam facility regardless of test results. The guidance said parents of minors are to sign a voluntary quarantine acknowledgement form and must identify the person who will provide adult supervision and stay with unaccompanied minors in GovGuam facilities. Cruz, a licensed nurse, and her husband, a respiratory therapist, were told by public health. Good reporting. Public health told them, right?
Adeloop said.
Yeah, Adeloop said, public health told them that their sons would be able to quarantine at home, court documents state. When the two arrived at public health, a public health official told Cruz the boys have to be transferred to a government facility for 14 days, and neither Cruz or her husband must enter with them, or the boys would be placed with strangers. So you over there, do you know these kids? No. Okay, you're okay. Come on.
Here you go.
Yeah, you hear. You know anything about these two children? No, you're okay. Come on, you can take care of them, right? The public health director testified. I guess the U is the public health director. The public health director testified if a parent of an unaccompanied minor refuses to enter quarantine, Child Protective Services assumes custody of the child. So Cruz entered quarantine with her children rather than have her children placed under the custody of strangers. Cruz then filed a lawsuit. Iriarte found Cruz didn't get information about her rights from public health. Cruz also signed a voluntary quarantine letter under pressure of DPHSS officials. Cruz didn't consent to DPHSS seizure for children in quarantine, nor did Cruz have an opportunity to explain her preference, the judge said. For at least 10 days, she was confined against her will without a meaningful and prompt opportunity to be heard regarding such confinement and not advised of her right to counsel. How many times do we have to go through this same scenario? Iriarte wrote in her decision to release Cruz and her children. Iriarte said the DPHSS memo revision 7 violated Cruz's constitutional rights of due process. So this, what is the full title of it? Public Health Guidance Memo 2020-11-revision 7 violated Cruz's right to due process. Nice work out there at Public Health. Okay, we're coming down to the home stretch here, so take a minute here, and then I'll probably ride down the home stretch. Now, I've still got this really good legal news to finish up the program with.
Time is running out. The last day to respond to the 2020 Census of Guam is fast approaching. Call 645-2020 to respond before September 30. Our call center hours are Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Sunday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. This is your chance to influence the decisions made for the next 10 years. Don't get left out of the count. Together, we can make a difference.
They're back. Any footlong is a $5 footlong when you buy one at regular price. At participating locations, Subway, eat fresh.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
So here we are back again with Judge Iriarte and Art San Augustine, and it appears that the Department of Public Health and Social Services, under its new director, Art San Augustine, is going for the record to see how many people it can lock up and have the judge turn loose in a short period of time. They have developed a real skill about it, and it's actually unforgivable. I think last week I went through the statute. It's Article 6 and laid out what Article 6 requires. You have to give people some papers. You have to tell them how long. You have to tell them what their rights are. You got to tell them that they're entitled to counsel. You got to tell them that the government will furnish counsel, et cetera, and they don't do it. They just don't do it, but they keep locking people up. So now the judge has enlisted the services of the Public Defender Service Corporation, which seems a little bit strange, to tell you the truth, because as a general rule, a judge doesn't have the power to issue orders to people or organizations that are not parties. probably the Public Defender Service Corporation wouldn't protest against this task from Judge Iriarte. And of course, their job is criminal defense. This isn't criminal defense, but it's kind of analogous to criminal defense. People are in stir and they're trying to get him out. So I'm sure I'll have more about this tomorrow, because the Department of Public Health and Social Services will figure out either a way to screw up the same way or some new way to screw up. Okay, I've got Donnie on the line here. Good afternoon, Donnie.
Hey, Uncle Bob. Thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm glad your last comments were a good segue to what I was going to ask next. And, you know, thank you and welcome to everybody on the, 900th day of the 2-week lockdown?
Is it 900 or 9,000? I kind of lost track, Donnie. It's been a long time.
I just threw out a random number because that's what it feels like. Life just seems so random, but yet it's not. Public health, you gotta get hats off to, their hard-working employees. I do want to thank their employees who have, despite still getting paid, show up and keep the embers going for people who need the services that they're supposed to be providing. The other services, that is.
Understood.
I just wanted to ask, in all the promotion of the 3 Ws and, throwing out numbers to scare people, do they have a list of people or people with who can testify to overcoming COVID, surviving it, maybe even not all those videos that they put out, but just somebody who's willing to talk about what it was that they might have gone through and how they got through it successfully?
I know someone who survived COVID. Her name is Lou, and she's on TV all the time.
Oh.
And
wow.
And her lieutenant governor too.
How did she describe it?
I'd like to hear Thomas L. Cry's description. Then we'd get lots of detail. Right, Donnie?
I mean, yeah. Instead of scaring everybody, give us some hope here. Where is the hope?
Yeah, well,
of getting out of this, and
we hope we live long enough to get to the end of the lockdown. I think that's the hope.
I hope they. I know there's not a lot of money in promoting non-communicable disease prevention because that program went and dried up a couple of years ago. But it's sad that if there's no federal money, they've stopped pushing stuff like that in lieu of that 900th day of the 2-week lockdown, that they could get people to actually, do those NCD programs that they spent a whole lot of federal money to promote. Where's all the supplies? Where's all the programs? Where's all the success stories like that?
Good point, Donnie.
Maybe that's the survival. Maybe that's the survival story right there.
Yeah.
Is non-communicable diseases and preventing it. Where's the push for that, so that people can pay attention to diabetes or high blood pressure and strokes and heart attacks, and staying off of dialysis and taking care of your lungs, quitting smoking, what have you.
True enough, Donnie.
Stay healthy, Uncle Bob. Appreciate the show. Hoping those people who were NCD warriors out there, get crack-a-lacking, especially a lot of those folks in public health, and make all that good hard work and education, federal money put to work, and get people out there healthier, not just locked up and locked down.
Okay, Donnie. Good talking to you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, and then at the end of the program here, the good news. Here it is, something that's been troubling me all my life. And this is something I got from How Stuff Works. Here's the question. Is it unlawful to remove the tag from your mattress?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I've been waiting all my life for this one.
Yeah. Here's the answer. If you own the mattress, then rip away. If not, you better not touch that tag. somewhere along the way, most of us have heard that we're not supposed to remove the tag from mattresses. As a matter of fact, that was always one of the descriptions of one of the descriptions of a really good person. You know, he helps little old ladies across the street. He's kind to animals. He wouldn't even think of tearing the tag off a mattress. Well, here it is. According to the U.S. Code, it's only unlawful to remove the tag prior to the sale and delivery of a pillow or mattress to the final consumer. This is Title 15, Consumer Trade, Chapter 2, Subchapter 5, Textile Fiber Products Identification, Section 70C, removal of stamp, tag, or label or other identification. Quote, after shipment of a textile fiber product in commerce, it shall be unlawful, except as provided in this chapter, to remove or mutilate or cause or participate in the removal of the mutilation of, etc. So in other words, it's okay to tear the tag off the mattress if it's in your house and it's yours. So on that high note, we'll wrap up another episode of Tall Tales.
The president's former re-election campaign manager, Brad Parscale, now hospitalized after police were called to his Fort Lauderdale, Florida home by his wife on Sunday, claiming he was armed and contemplating suicide. Cops were able to talk